Hello there, and the story ninjas in the house. And yes, I do have a story. So, listening ninjas, gather round and go and fetch everyone else too, because stories are for all. Our story today is coming out of our Reading Matters, and that's compiled by Karen Montgomery, Sue Ollerhead, and Glynis Lloyd. So, the story I found in this book today is called Koala. Many of you have heard of a koala bear, I'm sure. I see many of you nodding heads and saying, yes, a koala is found in, yes, Australia. So the story is an Australian story. And you want to find out about more about this koala? Right, so let's get started here. Well, koala in our story is actually a boy. You may see him down at the bottom there. A little boy. Well, Koala was indeed a little boy who lived a long, long time ago in the dream time. He hadn't a mother or father. He hadn't any brothers or sisters. He was all alone in his tribe. And because of this, he did exactly what he wanted. And he didn't listen to anyone. And some of you may think at some times, oh, you just love to be all by yourself and just do whatever you like. But let's find out what happens to Koala. Well, he pleased himself, and that meant he did no work, and he got up to lots of mischief, of some kind or the other. Now, one year, during the dry time, all the streams and the rivers and billabongs dried up, and the people had to walk a long, long way to water holes in order to get enough water just to drink. Everyone was big and strong enough, well, whoever was, and they went along to fetch some water. Well, except for our little boy, Koala. He didn't like walking, actually. So he stayed behind in the camp, making mischief. And when the others came back, he went around begging for water, because obviously he hadn't been out to work. And someone would take pity on him and offer him a little bit. Rather kind of them, though. But a day came when no one would give Koala a drink. I think they were getting tired of his lazing about or relaxing and getting up to little bits of things. Anyway, everyone said he should pick up his own wooden kulamon and go and get his own water. Now, a kulamon is just something that they use to store their water. Well, next morning, the men went hunting, and the women and children went out to dig for roots. And there was only one person left in the camp. Yes, quite right, it was Koala. And by this time he was feeling very thirsty now. It's been an entire day nearly. So he went around the camp looking for water. But he couldn't find any. All the precious water had been very carefully hidden. I think they all had an idea that Koala may go looking for it. He looked here, and he looked there, and he looked just about everywhere. He could not find the water. But he didn't give up. And in the end, he found a whole lot of kulamons full of water, hidden in the bush beneath a very shady tree. So Koala had a great, long drink and quenched his thirst. Oh, it was so good. Just drank and drank and drank. And when he was full and couldn't drink any more, he said, I know what I'll do. I'm going to hide all of these kulamons and this water in a secret, special place that only I know about. Oh my gosh. I see some of you shaking your heads. I'm shaking mine too. He took a full kulamon, climbed up a very small gum tree, and hid it on a branch among the leaves. And he fetched the rest of the kulamons, one after the other, and hid them up this tree. Oh goodness, he had just hidden the last one. And the tree stirred. Picturing a tree starting to stir, and it grew up, up, up. Strong magic in the tree was now wide awake. The tree became an enormous tree. Oh, Koala hung on tight, and when the tree stopped growing, he found himself near the top with all the cooler ones around him. He thought he'd climb down, so he sat on a big branch, right up against the trunk. And he thought, well, if he climbs down, he would need to climb up, so he rather sat tight and had a little snooze while holding on very tightly. At sunset, when everyone returned to camp, they were hot and thirsty after a day's work, and they went straight to that shady spot to find their water supply. But what happened? I'm sure all of you know. There wasn't any water for them. Goodness, I think they had an idea. Immediately, everyone had the same thought. Yes, Koala, Koala, where are you? And they looked around and they saw an enormous tree where there was usually a small tree. And near the top was Koala and all their Coolamons. Koala, they shouted, bring down our water. But Koala laughed. Oh, he felt safe at the top of that enormous tree. And if you want the water, you come and get it yourself. The young man said, a very brave young man. Well, everybody, I'll bring down the water. It's a very tall tree, but I can climb it. And his friend said, well, I'll come and help you. And I'll bring down that rascal, Koala, as well. So they climbed the tree trunk while Koala peered down between the branches and the leaves, watching them. And when they'd almost reached the top, Koala lifted a Coolamon and tipped out all the water, pouring it over these two young men. The trunk became slippery, and they tumbled down and slipped down the tree. Goodness. The two boys landed with a great big bumps down at the bottom. But then another two young brothers stepped up, and they offered to climb the tree too. But they didn't go straight up. Hand over hand, they were cunning, and they swung themselves around the trunk in a spiral. Koala watched until they'd almost reached him, and then he poured water over them as well. But they were smart. They swung themselves around the trunk so swiftly that the water missed them, and they climbed up on and on, coming closer and closer to Koala. Ooh, now Koala was afraid, and he began to moan, oh, and wail, oh, and cry. And next thing, one of the brothers reached out and grabbed for him. Oh, Koala struggled, and he managed to break free. But then he lost his balance, and he fell bouncing from branch to branch, right to the ground. Every single bone in his body hurt, but Koala was so afraid he didn't wait. He jumped up and he ran, and everyone was so angry they chased after him, shaking their fists and shouting. They were determined to catch him, can you well imagine. And they almost did, but just in time. Koala reached another tree, and he scurried up as fast as he could. Let's have a look. It's always lovely to see some pictures, isn't it? See what happens to Koala once he finds himself safely up in another tree. But what is happening? Before their very eyes, Koala starts changing. Changing into what? Let's see. Remember we mentioned that there's some strong magic in the trees. Koala started changing. Rough grey hair covered his body. His ears stood up, all fringed with furriness, above two round black button eyes, and a small black shiny nose. He was no longer a boy, he was a little bear. Oh, goodness! He had become a koala bear. And even today, Koala looks exactly the same. And would you believe it? he still won't go looking for water. He's quite happy to sit up at the top of that tree. And when he's thirsty, he actually just nibbles some more of those little juicy leaves on the gum tree. And that's usually enough for him. But he has not forgotten the day when he was in trouble and was nearly caught. For if anyone tries to climb his tree, what do you think happens? He wails, oh, and cries, oh, and moans, and makes a great big fuss, just as he did when he was Koala, a little boy. What an interesting story. I never quite thought that there was a folktale behind Koala. Well, Koala Bear. But it has me thinking. Sometimes, I think it happens to me too, I often feel so relaxed and laid back that I don't want to do anything. But after hearing this story, I am going to be sure that I get up and do those things myself. So that's all for now. Until next time.